Hey y'all, welcome back to the Team LoCoFit Roundtable. Today I am joined with Training Director Ryan Conley once again, aka Beb. And if you guys can't see, he's wearing this shirt that just makes me laugh and is the most Ryan shirt ever. It says brutal in all caps, which is the name of a gym, but it's also just so Rye to wear this kind of a shirt. Today we actually have a really special topic that sounds kind of cheesy, but like on today's episode of, so we're going to be talking about, where are you going? Oh, shut the door. Talking about firefighters, diet, and injury prevention. So if you guys didn't know, Ryan is a firefighter, and we do work with several clients who are also firefighters as well. And they do have a unique set of challenges with their diet and also just injury prevention and just like lifestyle prevention, in general, or lifestyle to prevent issues in general. So as far as diet goes, I know that I really jacked that up, but just roll with it, guys. Pretend that that was a seamless introduction to the topic. You know what I'm saying? This is how we are. And
that's how you are.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually me. And I'm the really bad person at intros, but I'm somehow always doing introductions. In any case.
Well, it's your podcast, so.
Yeah, you're right. Okay. Okay. So first things first. Diet. So if anybody doesn't know, and maybe there are probably stations that are a little bit different, but in a traditional setup, you are on shift for 24 hours, which means you are sleeping there and eating there, and you have a station where there's a certain amount of people and there's a kitchen there, etc. So people will go buy food that day, guys will cook, all that kind of stuff. So and again, every station is going to be different. So some people might not do it that way, but in most situations, you're going to be spending the night and you're going to be cooking together. So depending on the department, depending on who's there, depending on the chef, the food could be all.
The chef is who's cooking. We don't actually have a chef.
Yeah. That's what I meant. Yeah, they bring in personal chefs every once. Bobby Flay shows up every once in a while to where Ryan works. Not always, but sometimes.
We're tight.
Yeah, it's real cool. He does make good food. Anyways, that would be awesome. In any case, so you're going to go to the store and you don't know, right? Like some days it could be healthy stuff. Some days it could be just like total garbage food. So what are some ways to navigate that if you are, and also it is kind of a cultural thing that you don't want to not participate in at least some of the meals, right?
Yeah. So, normally you sit down at the table and everybody kind of spits out ideas. If somebody has an idea, or I just usually pull up the Publix ad, the grocery ad for what's on sale. And I can make, typical meat, rice, potatoes. I just keep it simple. Just season it and it tastes good. So ideally not ideally, everybody's usually going to sit down and spitball what they want to eat. So you'll say something, somebody might shoot that down. They might have a counter, and it's really just a negotiation. Now, you can do, especially if you go to the stores, you can pick up whatever else you need to pick up, like something on the side, or hey, can we get like a leaner cut of meat, or veggies, whatever the thing is. You can always, if you're not going to the store, you can always ask whoever is going to the store to get you something extra on the side. Everyone is more than willing to do that. So I always get like eggs for the following morning. It's pretty flexible. Everyone's cool about getting specialty items, is what we call it. So you should be able to make something work.
Yeah, and for you, because obviously...
Basically, the problem is people that don't know how to make stuff work.
Yes, and so for you, you're somebody who eats a lot, and obviously we've talked about that on previous podcasts, but Ryan is eating...
Not every podcast, I think.
Yeah, Ryan is eating real meals, though. It's not like he's just grazing on, like, junk food. Like, they are meals. So you're bringing in most of your own food, and because most people, you have to realize that most people eat twice a day, like, if that, right? So, like, if you're getting on shift... most people you're not going to have breakfast together, but you're going to have lunch together and you're going to have dinner together. So really, if you are a firefighter on shift, you need to plan for 2 meals that you're going to have with people. And then the other meals are going to be things that you should be bringing. So there really is no excuse like, oh, I didn't have enough protein today. Well, you didn't pack anything. Oh, this was really off. I didn't have any vegetables. That's your fault. You didn't bring that. Or, so there are a lot of things that you can control. There's about 2 meals that you can't if you're trying to be like a team player and be a part of all this. And within that, of course, you can still, like I said, like make adjustments and, kind of voice like, hey, could we get this, that, whatever. But there's some days where it's like, and you've come home and told me like, yeah, it was just kind of like really fatty today and just like not really good food. So like you'll eat a little bit less and like have more of your other stuff. So basically,
or I'll just eat all of it and be really fat.
Well, yeah, I know. But I'm talking about people who are not trying to be in that situation.
Yes.
Which is probably most people, right?
And also, when you're buying in bulk, usually the idea behind all that is you have 5 to 15 people buying food. You should be able to get meals at a pretty low cost because you're buying, you're putting into a pool of money. So it should ideally, that's part of the culture, is also making some savings off of it.
Yeah.
Ideally.
So there are a lot of good things to do it. So we don't want you guys to just like avoid the meals, but it is something that you're gonna have to plan and prep around. So hey, what am I gonna eat before I get on shift? Do I need additional protein at that meal or in between meals? What am I gonna have in the morning before I leave? And these are all things that you just pack and prep the night before. And then that way, no matter what happens, you have food and you're ready to go.
And helping the guys with general food education. I mean, everyone's asking me stuff, but most firehouses don't have like me that's there that has someone like Laurin to learn from and have a sounding board with. So I'm able to at least point them in the right direction, but more times than not, the questions it's usually the wrong questions. So I do my best, but there's a steep lack of understanding, and that's across the board. It's not just at firehouses. It's just that because they're cooking, the topic of food and what's healthy and what's not healthy comes up a lot. And swings like keto diets have been very popular the past year or two, and the fire department was affected by it just like everyone else.
Yeah. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with keto. Obviously, we have our own opinions on that. Don't think that it's the best diet by any means. Can it be helpful for some people? Yes. But ideally,
they're just mongering sugar usually.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, you know, there are some positive things that are going to come out of it for a lot of people, but truthfully, most people don't actually know what a keto diet is, and they're still doing really wrong things and like thinking that bananas are keto. It's like, no. But in any case, so definitely bring food, make sure you have enough protein, any kind of supplementation that you need, bring it with you. And because that is a perk of, I mean, even if you have a regular job, you can still bring all this with you, but the perk of being at the firehouse overnight is that you can bring a lot of stuff. You have this huge bag and you stay there.
And you have a fridge.
Yeah, you have a fridge, you have a full kitchen, and you're going to be sleeping there overnight. So you can totally bring stuff with you. It's not like a weird thing. And if people ask, here's the one thing people always, oh, I get really weird looks from my coworkers and I get all this stuff. Fuck them. I don't know what to tell you. You know what I mean? Like, people are going to ask questions about things that you're doing because it's different than what they're doing. You simply have to explain what you're doing and why you're doing it. And then that is what it is. At the end of the day, the people who are asking you these questions and what you think they're making judgments on you, they're not going home and going, oh my God, guess what happened today? And they're not continuing to think about the lunch that you brought or the snack that you brought, whatever it is, right? And I think a lot of people make it out to be a lot worse in their heads than it actually is. And if you consistently, you're just like, hey, this is what I'm bringing, this is why I'm doing it, and you do that for a few weeks, people are going to stop asking you. And if they are asking you, that's a really good opportunity to educate them as well. So it shouldn't always be looked at as a negative, like, oh my God, all these people are staring at me and asking me what I'm eating. Just explain to them kind of what you're doing, why you're doing it, and then they might adopt those habits as well.
Yes.
So that's one thing. So as far as diet goes, I think that it's very unique what kind of you guys deal with, but I think that there are a lot of pros to it that, you know, people might just not see if they're just like not planning properly.
And there's potentially like snacks sitting around, which I know you have other people that say the same thing at their jobs, is there's just treats,
food everywhere
nonstop. And it's even worse with us because people come and drop food off. So thank you stuff and desserts and cookies and the whole nine. Like the holidays around there for 2 months, it's you can't walk by without eating a cookie.
So that happens, you know, at a lot of people's jobs, and especially like if it is a home situation, like you're sleeping there at night, you know what I mean? Like a lot of people are working, but then they leave at 5, right? Or whatever time. And so for you guys, it's like literally there 24/7. So there will have to be some willpower involved with the eating. So I'm not trying to like downplay that at all, but there is an opportunity to bring your own food, to still stay on track, and then just modify the 2 meals that you're going to be eating with the group together. And the second part of this podcast was something that you're pretty passionate about and want to spread more information about. It's just like injury prevention for firefighters, because it's a huge issue.
Yeah. So I pulled up some statistics.
Get those stats out, babe.
Yeah. So this is from the NFPA injury ratings from 2018. Firefighter injuries were down, I think, around 1,000 from 2017. is 58,250 firefighters were injured. Now, from the outside looking in, most people usually think that it's going to be a horrific injury on a firefighter scene, like on a fire scene or a house fire or something like that. And the majority actually was on fireground duties of injuries. So that was 22,975, which would make up 39% of the total injury rate. Now, the 39%, and within those, I'm sorry, the leading cause of the fireground injuries was overexertion and strain. So those were the two things. They weren't catastrophic falls and deaths and things like that. They were normal physical pains. So overexertion and strain were 28%. That was the majority, the number one cause of injury. And there's some other stats through here that can look deceiving. So another 8,000 people were injured during training. So that's going to be, I'm going to imagine, is going to resemble very close to fireground injuries. Now another 11,500 were non-fire emergency incidents, which off the top of my head, I'm going to say medical and vehicle accidents. So emergency medicine calls and vehicular accidents are pretty much the top three things besides fire alarms that we run. And the final 11,000 injuries was during other on-duty activities. So the top four things that they've broken down these 58,000 injuries to are probably still very similar root causes. They're just happening in different spots throughout the shift. Now, the injuries during other on-duty activities, and some of it could be just working out or horsing around, just freak accidents playing basketball or something like that. But even if I just took half of these 11,000 injuries on duty while doing other activities and half of the 11,000 during non-fire emergency incidents, which would be our medical calls and vehicle calls, then you're still only left with 15,000 to 4,000 of them that are not going to be fitness related incidents, in my opinion. So out of 60,000 injuries, you've got between 15,000 and 4,000 that are not from some kind of physical exertion or lack of physical fitness.
So over 75% of this is coming from the lack of.
Well, it says 39% is what the first number that you look at, but it's really much closer to 70 to 80%.
Yeah.
My opinion.
And that makes sense. And because there's not really any standards for training.
Yeah, not across the board.
Obviously, you have standards to become a firefighter, but the whole testing process, and every state and every county is going to look different. But generally, there's a few tests that you have to go through. But afterwards, there's not typically a lot of mandatory training or mandatory tests to you have to keep up with. So you could reasonably not train and just do your job and kind of get by, but that's where a lot of these injuries are coming from. So what are some of the things that you think are kind of low-hanging fruit for people to add in or subtract that would help a lot with this?
So I'm going to go with some definitions by Tim Gabbett, who is a physical therapist, I believe, and a coach from New Zealand. I think he works with like the All Blacks and stuff, but he's been in the game for like 20 or 30 years. So some of his definitions are basically acute versus chronic workload. Now, what we're going to call chronic workload is basically fitness, right? So throughout a human's year, let's break it up into a year, how much training are they getting done in a year? Now that's going to be strength related, aerobic related, anything that's going to allow them to increase their general physical fitness. So when we have acute spikes in workload, like a training session or a week, that is when potentially injuries can occur compared to their chronic workload. So if the acute workload is very high compared to the chronic long-term fitness, that's when you're going to be potentially at risk and potentially going to be causing injuries that day or a week later or further down the road, whatever it is. That's when that bug can start. So the ways that we can kind of prevent that is, number one, strength training. the fire department job is never going to be something that you can be weak at or be out of shape with. So strength training and aerobic training are the number one things that you need to do. Now, personally, I think that most people, and this is again a general thing, and I just see it manifesting in the fire department. Most people concentrate too much on aerobic training, and they don't concentrate enough on strength training. Aerobic improving aerobic performance is a very, very low hanging fruit. It's very easy to do. It doesn't take a whole lot of training or a whole lot of effort to do, and it happens in a relatively short amount of time. The adaptations don't take years on end. Now, I'm not talking about marathon runners. Like one of my lieutenants was qualified for the Boston. Obviously, that's on the extreme end of aerobic training. But to be in aerobic shape, someone can generally train some kind of aerobic fitness for about a month, and they're going to retain those fitness levels for even longer than a month, even if they just stop doing anything. So just general 20 minutes a day of low intensity steady state or just any kind of circuit training, a little bit will do you. You just need something to get the ticker running and the pulmonary system working. And secondary or primarily of primary importance to that is the strength training. So I think that for the most part, most people have the aerobic training down unless they don't do shit at all, which is also a cancer, I believe, the people that just don't exercise in the least. But for the people that do work out, most of them are not taking advantage of strength training. Some people do CrossFit and thank you CrossFit, at least it has introduced some compound movements and barbell strength training into more people's lives. That has affected the fire department too. I see that all the time. So that's a step in the right direction. Now, what I would call minimum standards is bare minimum is being able to deadlift your body weight. I mean, I really can't see someone who is a professional tactical person, so fire, police, military, whatever, and not being physically fit enough to pick up their own body weight. I don't think that is acceptable. And if it were up to me, I would have everybody at least being able to deadlift twice their body weight. I think that that's more of a performance region that when you get into tough situations or you're being asked to go under an acute high workload, that's something that if you have a high chronic workload of picking heavy shit up, you're going to be able to pick the dude up that's in the corner of the bathtub into a ball that you don't even understand where to grab. That's going to prevent you from hurting yourself. And you're going to pick people up all the time for 20 plus years. And if you can't deadlift your own body weight, I'm sorry, but you're going to hurt yourself, and you're going to hurt your back. You're going to hurt your hamstrings. It's usually the back. I've seen at least last year, I want to say there was 10 to 12 people on light at one time. And I thought that was unheard. I thought that was ridiculous. So I think that a lot of this can be prevented. Strength training, aerobic training are going to be the two biggest training factors you can modify. And besides that, you're just going to have to try and eat well, sleep well, and just be generally conscious of your health and fitness levels. So those are going to be the main factors you can manipulate, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I know we did a podcast just on shift working in general, and there are just unique situations that people who are doing shift work have to deal with. And in particular, firefighters, just based on a lot of the calls that you guys run. Most firefighters are not running structure fires all the time. Now, depending on the city that you live in, there's going to be some that have a lot more fires. Like our one client, she works in Chicago. There's a lot more fires there than there are where you work. So it's just going to depend on where you live. But a lot of what you guys do and what a lot of departments I'm imagining do are run medical calls. And you're picking people up and you're doing these awkward things and you're going in houses and you're thrown into situations that you don't really know. But being strong is not going to be a hindrance. Now, does everybody have to do what Ryan does and is a powerlifter? Absolutely not. That's like not even remotely what we're suggesting here. But if you get into the weight room and you lift 3 days a week and you do a few compound exercises and you maybe do a few cardio sessions that are light, and on your off days you try and sleep well, you keep your stressors managed, and you're eating better across the board, you're going to be in a much better situation than if you're not doing any of those things. And I mean, it's like always, things kind of progress over time. And so when you're 20, obviously you get away with a lot, or when you're 30, and then as you get older and you've been doing this for a long time, now you're 50, you've been eating like shit, you haven't trained, and you go to this call and oh, now your disc slips and all this stuff. And that's very, very just common. It's not uncommon at all, especially even for younger people now too. So all these things have compounding effects, in particular, obviously just like lifestyle management as well. And a lot of people, again, in particular, people who are in the tactical kind of group see a lot of really, really bad things repeatedly. Obviously, everybody always thinks about that with the military, but obviously police and fire see the same types of things as well, different magnitude, but they see a lot of bad things. So if you're just not coping with that at all, and you have no stress outlet, and you just think, oh, I'll just drink every night and that'll make it better, that's a whole different, obviously, conversation. But in general, there's a lot of different lifestyle and stressors that have to be managed when you are in a situation like this. So training can be another great outlet just for that in general. And so, yeah, there's really no downside to eating better and training more. I can't really think of two better things to do. And this, again, does not mean that you have to be like a bodybuilder bringing 6 meals of chicken and rice every day, and does not mean you need to be a powerlifter, weight training 6 days a week. Like, this is not it at all. There's small things that you guys can do. Or not just you, but if you are listening and you're like, oh, hey, I know somebody who's doing this or in a situation like that, you can share this with them. It's, picking 5 small things that you can change, or even like 3 things to change. It's a game changer.
Yeah, and even with some of the people like saying you don't need to be a powerlifter or whatever, you don't need to be a powerlifter. You don't need to be qualifying for the Boston Marathon. You don't need to be a CrossFit local district regional athlete. But the things that I see are people that are like me or competing in these other sports and extracurricular activities. They're fine. Like, I don't have a huge level of aerobic fitness, but I can hang. And Benici, my lieutenant who runs and does marathon training, he can deadlift his body weight, and I wouldn't put it past him to deadlift twice his body weight. Mm-hmm. So these people that are generally fit are usually going to be able to, they're specializing in one thing. Yeah. I'm never going to be him, and he's never going to be me. And we're not trying to do that. I'm not trying to make everyone into one mold. You just have to be able to be the best of you possible and to use your strengths and advantages to benefit other people and to benefit yourself and your crew and the people that you serve. And you also want to just make sure that your weaknesses aren't hindering you in your performance. Mm-hmm. So anybody that doesn't work out, you need to start training. For those that are already training, you're probably going to be fine. So
yeah, it really is unacceptable that there are no set, in my opinion, like things.
I don't think there needs to be mandatory.
They're not mandatory, but I just think it's
like you can incentivize things. You can incentivize things to where people are going to want to do it. And I think that if people had the appropriate knowledge and education and coaching, or
they would want to,
and they started feeling the results and seeing the results, it's going to snowball itself. So I think that's really the best way to do it. But it's just going about getting that wheel turning, and anything government or government related is a slow wheel to turn. So
I just mean in general, I think that if you are in a line of work like this, like, it is your job to be in shape. Again, not to be the most in shape person ever in every category, but to have a baseline level of fitness it should be required, in my opinion. Not saying that there has to be a mandatory stipulation, but required as a personal thing. Hey, I need to go save people and help situations. I don't need to be a hindrance here.
Unfortunately, strength training is something that is, I think it's more of a skill than a lot of other like aerobic training. So
for sure. That's why everybody goes and runs. It's easy.
Yeah.
Well,
and
it's not.
We have to make sure that when they're strength training, they're not causing further damage or hurting themselves or hindering themselves more. Yeah. So it's a fine balance line to walk. And I wish it were that simple to where if they were just motivated, they could go do it. But they also, it's not their background, it's not their education to understand performance and how to improve themselves and stay healthy. It doesn't mean they shouldn't try. But I think that I don't know. Hopefully, we can help some people lean into the right direction and ask the right questions. And I know I've been helping some of my guys on my crew, so I can do right now, and maybe we can do more later.
Yeah. So if you're in the situation and you're listening, where you know somebody, try and share this knowledge and try and just share, like, hey, getting to the gym a few days a week, tightening up your diet a little bit, bringing certain things to supplement when you are at the station is going to be totally helpful for just not only your job, but for the rest of your life. So if you guys have any other questions, of course, let us know. And we do work with a handful of firefighters. So if you are somebody who is interested in this kind of stuff, we're your people. And for all other information about coaching, articles, podcasts, all those types of things, you can go to our website, teamlocofit.com, contact us there, apply for coaching, read some cool stuff. We have some pretty good articles. And actually I had the best compliment ever. I was on a podcast and someone was like, oh, these articles on your website are so great. And they're written in a way that is very easy for everybody to understand. And that's always been our goal. And one of the coaches, Jillian, has been doing a really great job. Each week she breaks down a scientific article and kind of puts it into layman's terms, like, hey, here's what they did and here's what they found. And it's been really cool to add that stuff. And I know not everybody reads as much. I know more people are into like audio and visual types of learning, but articles are great as well. So check all that out on the site. 10-star review on iTunes, Spotify, you know the drill. And we will catch you guys next week.
Deuces.